I've had a really bad, hand dealt to me. I was diagnosed with cancer when I was 12 years old. I went into high school with a sixth grade education because I missed, seventh and eighth grade for treatment. And I think I was put in a situation where no one really would have blamed me if I gave up.
I want to welcome my guest, Sam Grewe. So, just a short introduction. Sam Grewe is a fellow Notre Dame graduate and current medical student at the University of Michigan, who was recently featured in a TED Talk he gave at the university. He's perhaps most known for being an exceptional Paralympic athlete who has made a name for himself in the world of track and field. Born with a rare bone cancer, Sam faced numerous challenges at a young age. However, his spirit and unwavering determination propelled him to incredible heights. Specializing in high jump, Sam has represented the United States in multiple Paralympic Games, showcasing his remarkable talent and inspiring countless individuals along the way. Beyond his athletic prowess, Sam is a passionate advocate for inclusivity and accessibility, working tirelessly to promote opportunities for people with disabilities in sports and society. With his infectious enthusiasm and remarkable achievements, Sam Grewe continues to leave a mark on the world of Paralympic sports and serves as a beacon of inspiration for aspiring athletes worldwide. So with that, I just want to ask you, can you share with us a little bit about your journey into the world of Paralympic sports and how you discovered your passion for track and field?
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for having me. So I know you discussed my journey a little bit in your introduction, but I was diagnosed with bone cancer in my right leg when I was 12 years old, and so at that point, things are definitely a bit in flux as far as what my future might look like or certain aspirations. And so after about 2 years of chemotherapy, including the amputation of my leg, kind of found myself lost in the world, not entirely sure what I was doing. And Paralympic sport ended up being, an incredible outlet for me to find a new community, to find, my strength, and to set new goals. And so I fell in love with high jump as an event. Turns out I was okay at it, and so I kept working at it, and pretty quickly was able to join the national team and began competing internationally in 2015. And so track and field career has been, 8 years now. It included, jumping Division I with Notre Dame, and then now up at the University of Michigan, where I'm in medical school, competing with the adaptive sports and fitness team here. And so I've met a ton of incredible people, really inspirational stories. It's taken me to really cool places, and I'm very grateful to have had the opportunities provided by track and field.
And we're going to dig into more of that experience. But first, I want to ask you, as an athlete, I think one thing that attracts me to athletes is that you develop a particular mindset and discipline, especially when it comes to overcoming obstacles. Were there any obstacles that you faced, like in your sporting career, or just memorable moments that you think really defined your philosophy towards sports?
That's a really good question. Yeah, I mean, obstacles, there's been no shortage of obstacles. Early on, just figuring out how to walk again, after losing my leg, how to use a prosthetic, and that turns into how to run again. And so just continuing to learn how to use this new piece of equipment that I use as a leg. And that includes, mechanical difficulties that come with that. So, high school, going to the sectional championships and my leg breaking, the spike plate breaking off. That's not something that's happening to my peers that I'm competing against with two legs, but it's one of those frustrating things that I would deal with. Or, one of the most defining moments I think of my athletic career was in Rio 2016, when I got the silver medal, which was great, and I was thrilled. But it was because the other guy jumped just 3 centimeters higher. And so, that's not something that you forget. That feeling being on the podium and hearing another country's national anthem was not something that I was going to forget. And so a lot of it was learning how I was going to approach, my athletics after that experience, how I was going to make sure it didn't happen again. And, I could go on and on about the countless obstacles that have been put in front of me or, many of my other Paralympic athletes. But I think a lot of it is just sort of how you approach it, how you're going to learn from those obstacles, and how you're going to move on.
So in 2016, you're disappointed about coming second. And then in 2020, you're suddenly a gold medalist. So what happened in between then? Was there a different approach in your discipline? Sort of what do you think propelled you to that point?
Yeah. I think I did definitely approach it a little bit differently. On one hand, there's just taking more and more reps is going to, raised the ceiling, I think, a little bit. But also developing a routine with track and field, focusing on the extremely boring aspects of it. The approach is the same 10 steps every time. You got to do it hundreds, a couple thousand times to get it perfect every time. Just running that approach over and over and over again. Being a student of the event, learning the different, axis of rotations that you're bringing in high jump, knowing when and where those cues are to start those rotations, things like that. And a lot of the time between 2016 and 2020 was when I was in college, and competing with Notre Dame. And so, stepping up the level of competition a little bit pushed me, as a competitor to do the same. And I think that ultimately is what allowed me to take home the gold. And it was extremely, extremely close competition. I remember, it came down to the very, very last jump where if I missed it, I would have gotten silver again. And if I made the jump, I would win gold. And so, obviously, my competitor was also working hard in that time.
So take me to that moment. You have one more jump left before you can win a gold medal. What is going through your head? What are you telling yourself?
Yeah. So it's hard to really say for sure. I feel like I kind of blacked out, but it was, end of an extremely long competition in Tokyo, a couple hours, and it was just pouring rain. It was like monsoon type rain. You know, Overwhelmingly empty stadium because of the COVID precautions, but there's still, a ton of sound and distractions going on. My spikes were fully soaked. My prosthetic was barely fitting because of how drenched I was. But I remember, and you can see it in the video of my last jump, getting to the starting line and actually just like talking, out loud to myself. I don't even remember what I was saying, but it was like I was hyping myself up. I was smiling. I was like making myself so confident that I was going to hit that jump. And that's kind of something that I try to do in a lot of different aspects of my life. Is just, if I don't believe that I'm going to do it, then I'm probably not going to do it. And so, that's what I was doing. I wish I could tell you what I was saying, but I don't have a ton of recollection. I feel like it was a high energy, high stakes moment.
I feel like you touched on a very underrated aspect that we look at in high performing athletes. When we think about Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant or, all of these really amazing athletes, we don't tend to think about the mental as much as the physical. What advice would you give to athletes about developing their mental state to perform in those high tense situations?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And that's something that I genuinely believe that high jump and countless other sports are like 90% mental. And that's something that I still struggle with to this day because, like other athletes, I'm really hard on myself and I focus on the physical side of it and don't necessarily focus on the mentality. But for me, it's kind of like what I was saying. Like, I found that it was really easy to beat myself up when things weren't going well. Really easy to lose sight of what I was doing, to have these doubts. The imposter syndrome on that stage was like crazy. Um, but just for me, it was, you know, talking to myself, reminding me that I'm meant to be there, that I have put in, the hours, the blood, sweat, and tears to be in that setting, that I belong, and not letting that imposter syndrome kick in. And, like a lot of that came just from learning the hard way, having the reps and knowing that, I can get really pissed off and I can get really, really mad at myself, and just trying to not let that happen. I know that's not like a very clean cut answer, but I just had to kind of go through it to get to a place where I can convince
Yeah,
myself.
that's real. And on top of that, you're training for that, but you're also, and so at Notre Dame, you're a pre med student. And I remember I would always see you in the dorm, like you're always studying. And I'm always just curious, like, how did you balance that? Like, you have this life as an athlete, but also as a student, and you have professional goals. How do you balance those two things?
Yeah, I get asked that question quite a bit. And honestly, the answer that I have is I have found that when I'm competing, that when I'm training 2 hours a day, my academics actually seem to improve as well. And I think a lot of it is that athletics provided a structure to my day. It provided, every day I knew at 3 o'clock, I was going to be at the track. I was going to be out of there at 5 or 5:30, depending on, if we were in the weight room. And that left not a ton of time to get all of the studying done that I needed to do. And so, any gaps in the day, any opportunities that I had to spend that time studying. And that really taught me how to be efficient with my studying, how to do it. Folks can spend all night in the library, but if you're not studying in the right way, you're not going to really learn it. And so that, I think, was one of the most helpful things in preparation for me coming to medical school. Is just like, learning how to sit down for 1 or 2 hours and get through a lot of content by just picking out, the most important pieces and just knowing the fundamental, underlying aspects. And yeah, and the balance is obviously like extremely challenging. It's just a lot less hours in the day, a lot less energy. And so that definitely came, at the expense of other things, whether it was, social wise or, relationship stuff like that. But that's just kind of prioritizing, I suppose.
Yeah. And sort of switching gears here a little bit, there are a lot of, people like me who are pretty young watching the podcast. What advice would you give to people who are maybe in high school, maybe they're in college, early in their career, who have these goals that seem unachievable? What advice would you give them to help them achieve those goals?
Yeah. One of the things when I remember when I was in high school, I had a meeting with like it was a sports psychologist, and what she had me do, and I think it really kind of changed my life was, if you have this really big goal that it's going to take years and countless days, hours, years, whatever to get into that place. She had me break it down into bite-sized goals. So basically, where do I want to be in 1 year from now? Where do I want to be in 1 month from now, in 1 week, tomorrow, and breaking each one of those, steps into how can I achieve that? So, every day, is it putting, 30 minutes into the weight room in the morning and, I don't know, 2 hours of studying every single night, can help you just get, that much better for the next day. Really just breaking it down into digestible portions and checking off those boxes. Like for me, I'm one who gets a lot of satisfaction out of just checking things off the list. And so if I can do that every single day, I'm going to be a hell of a lot better in a year than I am right now.
Mm. And were there any mistakes that perhaps you made or that you saw other athletes making in their journey that sort of hindered them from achieving their goals that you can think of?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've made tons of mistakes. I mean, I feel like I have made the mistakes on both sides where I've taken my sport entirely too seriously, and I've also, not taken it seriously enough. And so, striking that balance, knowing, you know, oh, I didn't get that one height at this uneventful competition. That doesn't matter. Like I'm not going to beat myself over that. I still learned a ton from that. Versus sometimes having these times in college where I don't want to go to practice or I'm not going to take it that seriously. This competition doesn't matter. I'm going to go, party or do whatever else. And it's that hinders progress moving forward. And so I think the balance is different for everybody, but knowing like at the end of the day, it is just a sport and you are, more than just an athlete, but still taking that identity pretty seriously.
Yeah, I think it's important, like developing a growth mindset, especially in my life, has been one of those important things. And it feels like as an athlete, if you don't have that, you're kind of stuck in the mud.
Yeah. Yeah. The biggest thing for me is always just like zooming out, refocusing on the big picture, like understanding that, a couple, bumps down doesn't necessarily mean the trajectory is not going up. And that's hard to do. That's something I still struggle with that tremendously because like we take stuff seriously.
Mm. And I also want to talk a little bit more about so you're an athlete with a disability.
Hmm.
How has that evolved your interest, the things that you're involved in, like any projects or any of your goals moving forward?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, prior to losing my leg, my whole identity was like an athlete. I went from football to basketball to soccer to baseball, just year round. And so losing my leg, I I did not know if sports were going to be something that would be feasible for me to return to. And so I poured myself into getting better and getting rehabilitated so that I could be back, in the athletic scene. And once I was there, it was just so important to me because I kind of had a certain perspective of, I'm not always going to be able to play these sports, that this could be taken away from me at any point in time because I've experienced that firsthand. Um, and so it's kind of important to me to fill a role for others who are going through something similar to sort of demonstrate, what's possible, to show them that, hey, I went through something similar. I had my leg amputated, and I'm here doing sports. I'm here, living out my dreams, because, you know, that was really, really important when I was going through treatment was, folks coming in and just sort of sharing their story and providing a bit of, motivation for me. And so, that's definitely been a motivating factor for me is just being in a situation where I can use my experiences to help others who, might be able to pull some inspiration from it. Um,
And now you're at med school. What are sort of your aspirations for your athletic career and making an impact beyond sports?
yeah, yeah. So, you know, coming to medical school, my priorities have definitely switched. Acad- academics and my medical career is my number one priority right now, and I have made that clear, that athletics is now my second priority. It's behind it, and so I'm not training as much as I was. I'm not competing nearly as often as I was, and that's totally fine with me because I think my biggest impact right now is going to be in pursuing my career in medicine. And kind of like similar to what I was just saying, when I was going through treatment, it was my orthopedic surgeon who had a tremendous impact on me. He was the one who, kind of told me, hey, yeah, you're losing your leg, but you're going to be able to go out there and you're going to be able to, play football, to play basketball again. He kept pushing me, when I was down, and that's kind of why I wanted to pursue a career in medicine in the first place, because I really wanted to be able to do that for somebody else. And so, now as I'm working towards, hopefully a career in maybe orthopedic surgery, it's really cool to kind of, be so close to that and to realize like, you know, this would be a really cool thing to do. But yeah, I mean, it's now academics and sports, and that's kind of tough to swallow, but that's where I am.
Yeah. And as you're navigating this season of your life, has there been any books that you've read recently or just in general, like books that have impacted your life?
Man, that's a tough question because I'm not a big reader. Pretty much the only books I read now are medicine books. But oh geez, Tariq, you're putting me on the spot here. There are oh Jesus. I'll be honest with you, man. I Nothing really comes to mind
Yeah,
because I wish I had time to read right now, but it's been mostly just medicine books. Jeez. I need to
no,
read more. I need to read more.
well, if you don't have any books in mind, do you have any like final pieces of advice, just like life advice for people who are listening?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like I've had a really bad, hand dealt to me. I was diagnosed with cancer when I was 12 years old. Went into high school with a sixth grade education because I missed, seventh and eighth grade for treatment. And I think like I was put in a situation where no one really would have blamed me if I gave up. And so, kind of looking back and being out of all of that. Not to say I don't still have, challenges, but being past that incredibly difficult time, the thing that really got me out of that was taking it day by day, was letting myself be human, letting myself feel the frustration and feel the exhaustion that it takes to have to fight every day, while still recognizing the big picture, recognizing that you know I'm going to be better than I am today. And even if all I do is, 5 reps here and I go to sleep, I'm going to be 5 reps better than I was yesterday. And I think, looking back, it was day by day, understanding that there'll be setbacks, there'll be challenges, and just continuing, to fight regardless is, as it's a cliche answer, but like that is really what got me through it. And I really encourage others to sort of have the same perspective.
That was very well said. And where can people find you? Where can people keep up with you? Do you have anything that you want to plug?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So Instagram and Twitter, I'm at Sam Grewe, SamGrewe. Those are pretty much the only two that I use. It's been challenging to even upkeep those with medical school, but that's where you can find me.
And you also have a TED Talk too.
Yeah. So I spoke at the TEDx U of M last, boy, over a year now. That's crazy. Kind of just sharing my story, talking about, you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backwards. Kind of finding meaning through the challenges that are put in front of you, recognizing, I am here in medical school right now because I was diagnosed with cancer, right? It's hard to really find meaning when a 12-year-old being diagnosed with cancer at the time, but now I can understand, like, hey, I'm taking those experiences, and I'm living it right now. And so you can find that if you just look up Sam Grewe TEDx. I'm sure it would pop up. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for coming. All the links to Sam's social media, TED Talk is going to be in the description. Sam, thank you so much. This was awesome.
Tariq, thank you for having me. Good to see you, man.
Awesome.